speakers. It's Nantheesh, is that right?
Yes, yes.
Hey,
Pronounced
Nantheesh.
it right on the first go.
Great to meet you. Great to meet you. And you're from London, is that right?
Yeah, hello from halfway across the world. It's
I'm shocked that the call
not
was
even
this.
up yet.
What was that? Sorry.
Sun's not even up yet.
Well, good on you for meeting me. I really appreciate it. Um, and now you have a project on the go that you want to show
Sorry.
me.
What was that?
You have a project on the go that you want to show me. Is that right?
So I don't. Yeah, I mean, I can show you. Yeah. But yeah, no. It's. I just wanted to ask what you thought of it, really, and
Yeah, cool.
or that was sort of the conversation. The other one, I wanted to trying to reach out to as many sort of doctor slash entrepreneur slash tech people I know and asking about how they navigated a career, how they tried to integrate it into their career. Um,
Yeah,
because I was
absolutely.
thinking I should start thinking about this now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Why don't
Uh,
we? I do want to talk about that. Why don't we talk first about like first of all, like, are you a doctor or you're a med student or like what's your level of
no, no.
study? No,
So I'm a medical student
oh, you're a med student.
at
Cool.
UCL in London.
Yeah.
I'm
Awesome.
fifth out of 6 years here.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all the fun facts about me. No.
And do you code or how are you getting this thing
Yeah,
built or
yeah. So I've always taught myself how to code since the first year of med school, sort of first and second year of med school. Really, I just enjoyed just learning it,
nice?
but I've never applied it. You know how people apply to like tiny projects and like
Yeah.
put it on GitHub. That just never occurred to me.
Yep.
So I only discovered the wonders of GitHub and things like that this January when I started. Thought I should just do this. So
Yep.
that's what this came out of it. But yeah, how about yourself? Are you're a doctor over
Yeah, yeah.
in?
So I'm the equivalent of like an FY. I think you call it FY, like first year. Is it? It was or
Oh yeah.
foundation year one. So I'm an intern. I've been a doctor for 10 months.
Oh, 10
And
months.
so
Wow.
yeah,
Okay,
and
fine, fine.
so the questions about how to integrate technology into your career are still ones that I'm very much asking myself.
Mhm.
um, I'm actually looking to make it more of a formal part of my life
Cool.
next year. The exact details which are being still being ironed out. Um, I do. There are lots of different options which we can maybe talk about in a second. Can you talk a little bit about? So it's called Equical, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so how did this
Exactly.
start? Like, or do you have a demo ready that you'd mind showing on camera? If not, that's fine. Or
Yeah.
do you want to just pull it up and we'll just poke around? Or
Yeah.
if not, we can just.
No, no, no. It's all right. It's all right. It's super basic. The way it came across is let me make sure it's all started up. Yeah. Let me share my screen here. Post this. You've disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh, let me just turn that on. Hold up.
But yeah, no, it came across as I've always wanted this study plan, and I was always, one of those kind of nerds who was just liked using apps and finding an app for everything.
Yeah.
But there was no one app that fitted my exact needs.
Yep.
So I thought I'd create my own, starting with the foundation of having study events repeated at increasing intervals.
Yep.
That's something that things like Google calendars can't do because they can do every week, they can do every Tuesday, they can do every other Tuesday,
Yes.
but they can't increase the intervals.
Yes. Yeah. I see.
So, so I thought I'd just do that, and that's purely through an API call. Oh, let me try and share it now.
I've just turned it on,
Yes.
so hopefully it'll work.
Share. Yeah, no, you picked me in a good time because this I fixed a bug 2 weeks ago,
Nice.
so it should be working. But I have an annoying problem where the debug is still on. But anyway, so let me sign in with a Google account. Or which one should I use? Let me have a look. My Google calendar.
Do you have a GitHub account? I'm going to follow you right now.
What? Sorry.
Do you have a GitHub account? Because I'm going to follow.
Yeah, it should just be Nantheesh P.
Nice.
Yeah, I use that to work with my team. I haven't really contributed much. It seems quite daunting to contribute to these huge, projects. Why do I have to see them? I'm just getting up my Google Calendar. Right. So. Okay, so yeah, so you sign in with a Google account. I don't know, I have no idea why I'm doing this, but I think it should work if I type in a topic. Okay, no, it's not working. Let me.
It's all good. Don't worry. I've put you on the spot. I know what it's like doing demos, especially in
Yeah, I mean,
I
these
know
are
exactly what
these
it's like. Don't worry.
these teething problems I face because of it. I think I've just built because I was in a rush to build it, and I've no experience in building, a good architecture.
Yep.
Like so the API is in one thing, and it's really unorganized in the sense that the API call, the tokens, and the user info is all essentially in one file that's run at the same time.
Yeah.
That's so bad because the first time I launched it, what I didn't realize at the time was if I logged in from my computer and someone else logged in from their computer, it was Yath actually.
Yeah.
He actually had access to my calendar, which is not good. Because my token was still on the app.
Yeah.
I didn't use databases at the time.
Yeah.
But now it is using database. Hold on. What am I doing?
Everything you've described is all part of learning, so don't be discouraged by any of those things.
Yeah, no, it's fun trying to find the problem. So usually to test this, I just remove the access and it should work. Right. Let's go back to calendars here. Fine. There's no equal cut calendar here. Then if I sign in again. Yeah, I mean, I've had a few conversations with a friend of mine who's who's into software development and works for a company, and he's really given me a roadmap of how to build this.
Good. Cool.
And then a guy I spoke to from Venezuela as well. But it's slightly dawning on me from the more startup. Let me try from another account. From a startup point of view, how this could be sort of monetized and how to go from there.
Yep.
Because at the moment it is super limited in the sense that you can't do much with the calendar. All it does is just add tasks.
Yep.
But what it can do further down the line. But at the same time, for some reason it's appeared here on my actual calendar. Let me try again. I don't know why it's not showing here. I think you jinxed it.
I have jinxed it. Don't stress too much about it because I know exactly what it's like doing a demo at the best of times.
No, okay, fine. But no, it's working because I just typed now.
Cool. Yeah.
So if I was to do, these are all the nerdy things that I've done. Let's just do cholecystitis. Why not?
Topical. I'm on a general surgery team at the moment, so it's very topical.
There you go. So here we go. So this is the Google Calendar, which should be showing on here with an iPhone. I'm not sure why not. Anyway, so it's inputted it there,
and so the idea is, I've put cholecystitis on my calendar because I want to revise cholecystitis, and this thing is going to add it at increasing intervals over the next 12 months or something. Is that the right idea?
Yes, but in this case, you've on the day you write it, it's the day you studied it. So it's like a pathway to when you study new content. Today I studied cholecystitis. You put it in here. So what did you learn today? And then you press enter, and then it tells you when your next reviews are.
Right. Yes, I get you. Okay.
And
cool.
It displays it there.
Cool.
And then you go on those days, and then the idea is, if I was to just click a page to a roadmap here, you kind of open the app. You just tick off what you've done. You can feedback to it. It will readjust your topics. That's one part of it. So the other part is really learning about yourself and reflecting on yourself. Because I feel like I'm sure for most people, they kind of overestimate or sometimes underestimate how much work they can do. So another feature of this would be able to learn your learn your behaviors when it comes to studying.
Yep.
So, for example, if you had like cholecystitis, you were quite bad at it. You actually took 2 hours to do it. Next time it schedules these topics in, it'll be like, okay, you've got 3 topics here. I'm going to move one of them to another free day because you won't do the 3. Or, for example, if you had a football match going on, it would say, you've got a football match. You're not going to do any of these.
Yeah.
I'm going to move them across.
Yeah. Football takes priority after all.
Yeah, of course. Especially when it's like varsity or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of moves everything for you. So it does all that for you. And then the use cases with schools and stuff. But yeah, there's kind of where lies the problem, in the sense that this would be great for a small number of individuals who you are very, as I was describing, A-type, use calendars.
Yeah.
But then if I give it to schools, if I give it to like universities to use, I'm kind of forcing them like to do this. Or why should I listen to when a calendar tells me what to do?
Yep. So
that's where I am at the moment.
I have a few thoughts just from the video that you sent over and this demo and a few other bits and pieces, but I have 1 or 2 quick questions I want to ask.
Yeah.
And so this, you've kind of touched on it briefly already. Are your intentions with this to turn it into, a business / a product, or is it, do you think it's going to stay as kind of a side project status, which is fine in its own right? I'm not for a minute suggesting that you have to take this and turn it into a company or a product. Or is this just something that you think will be useful for you, and if anyone else gets benefit from it, great? Or is this just, something that you think will be intrinsically good? Or is this a learning project? Or what does this mean to you? Like, what is it for you? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, exactly. Why am I spending hours and hours on this? I think partly because it is something I want and need for my own studies and revision. So there's that element.
Yep.
The other element, where it's going. So it can either go 2 ways. One of them is where it does go at the startup route, but that's such what I like to describe it as a continuous treadmill. So it's on me to do the legwork to reach out to people, validate the product, get features, get people working on the code sort of full time, as opposed to me, whilst balancing studies. And ending up with errors like this. But obviously, when I go down that route, it's more. There is also an element of monetization, funding, and because services servers and run, they do cost. So it's that element, and the other element is the least that could come of it. I'm imagining is I just make it. I might have another someone who's really willing to help out with this. Create it, put it up on the internet. People can use it, and then they can buy me a coffee by donating something.
Cool. So it sounds like there's a fairly kind of like open, you have a fairly open thought process about what it might look like in terms of in the future. So that's cool. And at the moment, are you working on it by yourself?
Yeah. So this I started by myself in February, and then. I met a final year computer science student at my university, and I also got introduced to who's now a first year computer science student as well. But the problem is I've been working on this for the past 3 months-ish myself, because the final year, they're at both ends of the spectrum. So the final year has got interviews for her grad jobs pretty much every week. And the the first year has just started uni. So I said, it's fine. You could take your time to like find your feet. Especially with everything that's going on.
Everything happening in the world at the moment. All right, cool. So first thing I want to say is this is awesome. Like I think if you've seen anything I post on Twitter or anything, I'm just a really big advocate for people in clinical roles getting technical skills and building anything like this. From the stuff that you've shown me already, I can see you have kind of like you're on the right path, I guess.
Oh, sorry.
And
you froze there.
Oh, sorry. Basically, I just wanted to say that I'm a a very big advocate for people in clinical roles having technical skills for a number of reasons,
Mhm.
and I'm really excited to see you working on something like this, because I think it's all steps in the right direction in terms of where our field is like our medical field is going, and the opportunities that are going to be available to you. I jotted down a few things about everything that you've shown me, and I hope that none of this is all meant from a constructive place. So if at any time you feel like I'm criticizing you, I'm not. I'm a massive supporter of this and what you're doing. So the first thing I wanted to say is, when you sent me that the video demonstrating the app, when you sent it over to me, which was awesome. Video is, tells 1,000. It's way more engaging than text or whatever. So video is the way you get attention. But I wanted to just kind of talk about how you frame this when you talk to people, because especially if this is going to become a product or a startup for you, you need to be the number one advocate for the product that you're creating. And so that means you need to
Yeah.
get basically a 2 or 3 sentence summary, kind of like your elevator pitch, of why someone should use this, and it needs to be really, really clear. When in the video that you sent over, which I'll admit I haven't watched today, I just wrote down that your instinct as the developer of the product was to pull it up and show me as many of the features as you possibly could, because I do this too, because I've made these things and I'm proud of the things that I've made. And so the instinct is to say, look at the things that I've made, look at all these things, I can sign in and I can leave. That is not what makes sense. At the start, the thing that makes sense is why. Why should I use this? Why should I, what problem is it going to solve for me? Why would I use this? And so, being in second last year of medical school, I dare say you'll be well on your way in terms of working on the idea of like a clinical case presentation, where you go to the senior doctor and you explain, I've just seen this patient and this is the problem that I have, kind of thing. That strong opening sentence, that applies to this kind of thing too. So if, in that video, and I know you were just kind of like mucking around in that video, but I'm just trying to sort of reiterate the point that your 1 or 2 sentences to introduce this product should address the question, why should I use this? Or why did you make this even? So that for you, that might be something like, in med school, I needed a way to organize my revision schedule. And so I created Equical to help me do that efficiently. That is like a really concise way of saying what your app is and what it's intended to do. So I guess that's like the kind of the take-home message from that side of things. The next thing is, are you doing all the interface design? And again, this is not necessarily in order of priority. I'm just sort of thinking of them, saying them as they come to my head, or as they have come to my head anyway. Are you doing the interface design for Equical at the moment?
There is no interface design.
Cool. That's fine. That's totally fine.
I hated CSS and HTML.
Yep. Yes. It's a headache, isn't it? Yeah. It's such a headache. So there's 2 things I'd say to that. First is, I would when you're trying to build something like this, I'm not saying you need to go and get a graphic designer or anything like that. But if I were you, I would get a blank A4 sheet of paper and draw what I want my page to look like before I build it. Just the basic layout of where the main components are going to be, because I think that makes, when you've got a plan for what you're building, it actually makes it a lot more intuitive and a lot easier to divide into small, manageable chunks. If you don't have a clear plan for what you're building, it's very hard to divide into chunks, just kind of do that in a stepwise fashion, if that makes sense.
Yeah. We did something similar on Figma. But,
yes, cool.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Design
for a project of at this level, or for where you're at now, that's literally all you need. I'm not saying it needs to look beautiful or anything like that. I'm just saying put some thought into the layout of, and not just the layout on the screen, but also like which screen is going to go to which screen at what time, and like how's that all going to look. Some level of thought into it is enough, really. That's it. The next thing in terms of the actual design itself, I stress that I don't really think you should pull your hair out trying to focus on this too early. But if you don't mind screen sharing again, if you've still got it open, there's there's pretty much one video. I can't remember if I sent it over, but there's one video you need to watch that will completely change the way that you think about design. And it's from a guy on YouTube whose YouTube name is Design Course. That's his like YouTube name. And the video is called something like The 4 Principles of Interface Design that everyone needs to know. And it sounds like a really clickbaity title, but it's absolutely an adequate description of what the video is. And he goes over 4 principles, which I can't recount for you, but they've become so intuitive to me that it makes designing interfaces a lot better. Can you screen share again? And I'll give you one example.
Yeah. Sure.
All right. So you see this what did you learn today box?
Mm-hmm.
So that one of the, I can't remember the actual title that he gives the design principle, but it's essentially to do with equal spacing. So do you see the margin or the padding on top of the what did you learn today section? Yep. So that little that section there, that padding. Now, can you see below what did you learn today that there's a different amount of padding between the text and the text box?
Yeah.
And then inside the text box itself, that padding is, so that padding in there between the placeholder and that space right in there is different again. So I'm not saying they should all be the same, but there should be some sort of consistency to it. Let me give you an example. So if that first space that we spoke about above the what did you learn today, let's say that was 20, then the space below it could be 10, and then the space that pads the type here to hit enter could also be 10. So it's kind of like, you halve it, and then it's essentially just being consistent with your spacing, because there you don't have consistent spacing between all of those elements. And to me, having watched this video, now I look at that, I'm like, that's not quite right, and it doesn't sit well with me unless you have consistent spacing there. And you'd be surprised how small little changes like that can make your interface feel a lot more like natural and kind of like modern. If you look at any, like I always like to use GitHub as my example, the actual GitHub website of my example of just really clean, elegant, and consistent design. Their padding on all their elements is standard. Like it's standard for their buttons, it's standard for all of this. And once you have a clean and consistent style, new things that you show a user can feel natural or intuitive or nice. And that's kind of like, that's kind of what you're after. I don't want to ramp on for too long about that. I would just recommend watching that video, and where you're able to, trying to apply the consistencies that you are trying to apply the principles that you learn from it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think padding and as much space as possible is like a good thing. It's like the new thing.
Yes, it is. That kind of a clean, spacious design where it's, you're not.
Yeah.
It's a real art having, I guess, plenty of information on the screen, but no more than you need right at that moment. It's a real art to be able to do that well, and there's a whole kind of like, to be honest with you, there's a whole profession in interface design, and I'm not going to pretend that I know it all, and I'm not going to try and pretend that you should know it all. But the point I'm trying to make is like just knowing the basics, you can probably get 75% of the way there to having like something really clean and cool.
Yeah.
The next thing is, so I kind of touched on it before when you were talking about a roadmap and like potentially trying to get users and that kind of thing. Do you have a clear kind of trajectory for the the features and things you want to build in the future, or are you just sort of doing it on an ad hoc basis at the moment?
So obviously, because I'm the one focusing on this at the
Yeah.
moment, it is technically ad hoc.
Yeah.
But in terms of features, the next two would be to add and be able to delete and edit.
Yep.
So it's very short term. That's pretty much as far as it's gotten.
Yeah, no,
but
that's cool.
After my conversation with my developer friend, it slightly would have to change now, because he recommended that it all goes. You save the user's data into a database and then push it from the database.
Yep.
So that we've got data to analyze.
Yep.
At data to pull and do understand user behavior, stuff like that.
Yep, that all sounds cool. Just one warning about that kind of approach where, and if you're learning and this is a side project, then that's great. That's really good. In fact, to be honest with you, that's the way I prefer to do things. Just kind of like let it flow. If you're trying to turn this into a product or a business in some way, you have to be really careful being the founder and the only developer. And the reason I say that is they're two very different hats. As the founder, you have to make sensible business decisions about your product or your tool. In the purest sense, only really want to build things that will, or you want to spend your development time on things that will drive revenue, drive user growth, drive all those things. That is a very different mentality to the developer, where you want to squash bugs anywhere in front of you. You want to build this next cool thing that's caught your interest. It's a very different mindset. And you have to deliberately switch between those hats, because if you don't deliberately switch between planning the features and that kind of thing and building them, what you'll find is when you get your developer hat on, you'll just start going down all these rabbit holes that aren't consistent with good business practice. In that I've done this to myself so many times, where I literally spend a whole weekend's worth of development time trying to fix some, I don't want to swear, but some rubbish little CSS bug where like my elements aren't vertically aligned nicely. And I'm just trying to get them aligned nicely. And I'll spend maybe not a whole weekend, but I can easily do an afternoon's worth of development time trying to fix that, when that just does not make sense. That does not make business sense at all. It's this kind of developer mindset that you have to get rid of. And so that's just something to think about. If if you find yourself not making the progress that you want to make with this, that could be, in terms of taking this towards a business, that could be a sign that you're not prioritizing the right things, which might mean you need to wear your business founder hat more often and start planning features rather than just coding. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, completely. And I think I have experience to show for it. It's why this idea was founded in February.
Yeah.
I was coding it. If you looked at my screen time for VS Code, probably see it. Jesus. It hasn't got far. But then also, having spoken to a business advisor here at uni, he recommended a founder role is completely different, because I have to think about funding and really validating the idea.
Yeah.
And whether people would actually use it, brainstorming ideas and features for it.
Yeah.
That's the two. And I think the way you phrased it was really good. CTO would be focused on squashing bugs.
And building stuff and all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not really a founder's role.
The take-home message is you have to deliberately switch between those hats. I mean, there may be a way to do it well, just as yourself. I haven't found it. I have to deliberately switch between, okay, I'm building, I'm coding, I'm delving down all these rabbit holes, and I'm deliberately building stuff. And then I have to have another hat where I kind of abstract myself onto a layer above, and I say, right, what are the next features I'm going to build? What are my priorities? When am I going to release? What is going to drive my revenue? What is going to drive my user growth? All that kind of stuff. They're separate skill sets and separate mindsets, really. Now, just probably the other main thing that I wanted to talk about is, and this might be, a little bit, I guess, ahead of where we're at in terms of sophistication at the moment. But it's something that may eventually improve your development time, and certainly the way that you're able to deliver demos. So are you using GitHub for this project?
GitHub to share the code with the two people.
Oh, with your people who are advising you. Yeah, that's cool. One of the other advantages of GitHub, and again, this might be a little bit ahead of where we're at, I'm just kind of laying this out maybe as an option in the future, is you can create branches, which are essentially different versions of your project. And that makes it very easy to run your project in different environments. So one example could be the development environment, which is on your laptop or your PC that you're working on. Another one could be, essentially what they call a staging environment, which is basically a build that you intend to publish, but you want to run some tests on. And then another environment might be production, i.e. the live current version of your project that's live to the world. And using branches, you can easily sort of maintain and merge these separate versions of your project. One of the advantages of doing it this way is that your development environment, i.e. the one you're showing me now, I guess this is the actual live version on the web, is it? Let me see if I can load it up, because is the version I can see now, is that the actual web version?
App.equical.io, yeah.
Oh yeah, cool, it is. It's live. Awesome. Although I'm getting some sort of error when I load the page. That's fine. I don't mind. The point is
that I plugged in?
I'm getting some sort of attribute error. What? Anonymous user object has no attribute.
If you refresh now, does it work?
That's also an issue that I'm getting on a production version. I'm getting a like a back-endy type error. Anyway, we can talk about that another time maybe. I'll show you. I'll just send you a screenshot of what I've got.
I think it's something like 2 user IDs found, right?
Possibly. I'll screenshot it to you so you can debug it. But that's cool.
No, thank you.
No, it's all good. This is all part of learning. Now, the other reason I wanted to say this is one of the advantages of having different environments like that. So your development environment, your staging environment, your production environment, is that then in your development environment, you don't necessarily have to do things like talk to the actual Google Calendar necessarily. Obviously, it's coupled quite closely to the functionality of your app, but you can potentially, again, this is a bit sophisticated, make the development version of your app talk to a service that kind of pretends to be Google. It's a service that you write, and so that allows you to test things like your things that aren't directly related to Google. It allows you to test those things without having to, sign into Google and kind of do all that stuff. It's a little bit hard to explain in a couple of sentences, and perhaps it is a bit more sophisticated. But basically, if you have different versions of your app and environments, you can then potentially what they call mock away your connection to Google. You can then test other things in your app a lot more sort of like quickly and readily if you don't have to sign into actual Google every time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's it does. It's like you're setting up an own calendar and just showing that back to yourself.
Essentially, and there are certain techniques that you can use to make it as seamless as possible. Because at the end of the day, you want to be able to test the things that matter, and in this case, putting calendar events on actual Google Calendar matters. But maybe in a future Zoom call, we could talk about like how you might actually kind of implement that in the future.
Yeah, I think I've right. We haven't sort of formed like a structure for Git just yet because it was all just about sharing files.
Yep.
But I think I was recommended to use Kubernetes.
Yep.
To run this so that. It's not that it's the GitHub that's run, but the new changes get pushed.
Yes, yeah.
You can always keep testing something along those lines.
Yeah, it sounds like your friend is describing something like what they call continuous integration or continuous deployment, which is basically like every time you make some sort of commit, a series of tests run, which test that your app is working well, and if it is working well, then it will just push them out to the web. Again, that's probably I would put that probably in the intermediate or advanced bucket in terms of pipeline or features to kind of implement. This will all come with time, especially if this does start to take off in kind of any capacity. I guess probably the last remaining point that if you've followed me for any time, like you probably are kind of aware of this already. But if you're trying to build a product, if you're trying to build a business, if you're trying to make this in any way generate any revenue, try to be user focused. And for the first version or two, if it's scratching, itching your own scratch, then or scratching your own itch rather, then that's fine. But just remember, at the end of the day, you have to build things that users who are going to pay for them will pay for. And so that means that your own opinions about what is cool and or good and or useful take a back seat to any users who A, use your product, or B, refuse to use your product. You have to listen to those people who refuse to listen to it, to use it quite closely, because they might have legitimate objections. And so after a certain point, you need to be doing whatever necessary to get feedback from the users or potential users of this, if your primary goal is to turn this into a commercial product. And if you're not user focused, what happens is you go down this line of building things that you think are cool, but no one is willing to pay for. And I've done that. I have gone for 18 months building things that I think are cool, and maybe they are cool, but no one is willing to pay for them. And so by constantly coming back to your users or potential users, that's kind of how you avoid that pitfall.
Yeah.
Now before
like you mentioned, it really reiterates the role of a founder versus...
Yes, absolutely. Now, I will have to sort of let you go very shortly, as I'm kind of a little bit low on time. But I thought we could use the last couple of minutes just talking about, like, I guess what you see as like the biggest challenges for you going forward. Are they technical? Are they, or is it time based? Or basically, if I can understand what your biggest barriers are to success, I can hopefully best remove some of them for you to, get you where you want to or need to be.
Oh, big barriers to success, big question. I think there's kind of two elements here. One of them is the idea. So I need to start speaking to users, like you mentioned, to see would they like a calendar rather than me forcing them to use the calendar. It's good. Science says it's good. Use it. So there's that element, and the other element that I'm really truly the rate limiting factor in the development side. As you can see, and I would be the one who'd be scrolling through, Stack Overflow and documentation to fix something. So, and obviously, I'm also balancing that with other commitments and the degree as well.
Totally hear you. Yeah.
So there's but kind of both. So that's why I was hoping to find someone who can work on this.
Yeah.
And then I can sort of oversee it. I can then also navigate where Equical goes in terms of speaking with users.
Yeah.
But obviously that's all now taken a bit of a hit because of that conversation I had last week on whether people would actually... I'd never thought about whether users would actually want a calendar telling them what to do.
Yeah. And
it's just it's for those people who are very, organized and stuff like that. And my motto behind this all deep down was, this is so good that people should be using this. People should use this to improve themselves. But that at the end of the day, it's the user's decision, right?
So the only way you're going to get the answer to that question is, or to hope of getting an answer to that question, is to actually launch and see. People, your friends will tell you it's great and that they'll use it. People you don't know will tell you it's rubbish. You can't see the forest through the trees until you launch a version of it. There's no kind of real to that. I hope my chat hasn't discouraged you at all. I think med school is full of type A personalities, and they very well may use something like this, especially if you can find ways to integrate it into their workflow kind of smoothly, I guess. There definitely could be a chapter of people that would use this, definitely. On the point about you having other commitments and university and all that kind of stuff, the other point I want to make is absolutely, and you seem very sensible, and I'm not for a minute suggesting that this isn't the case, but my opinion is that, of course, university should absolutely come first. Yourself should come first. Everything should come ahead of this, and I'm not I'm not a Gary Vaynerchuk type who's going to try and tell you hustle this thing into the ground until whatever. All of my side projects go through a phase where maybe you're so kind of deep in that you feel like you can't, it becomes more of a burden than a joy. But certainly if anything like this gets to a point where it's too much for you, or it's gone several months without bringing you any joy at all, and you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, you should have no shame about dropping it like a sack of potatoes and moving on to the next thing. Once I kind of realized that I could drop my side projects and that everything would be okay, it almost opened up this whole new chapter of possibilities for me in terms of my programming and my creativity and my enjoyment of what I was doing. You know, if again, I'm not saying you should drop it at the first sign of hardship. You know, all projects go through difficult phases, and you're a programmer. You know what it's like when you're trawling through Stack Overflow and you can't find the thing that you need. It's just terrible, right? But if the project overall is not bringing you any level of joy and you're not feeling optimistic about it anymore and you dread working on it and, you know, all of that kind of stuff, if that persists for any meaningful long amount of time, just drop it. Just drop it like a sack of potatoes and work on something else. And that in itself will be liberating for you and ultimately get you closer to where you want to be in terms of you know, releasing programming projects that you're excited about and passionate about and all that kind of thing. So I guess that the you know that the point that I wanted to make there was, don't be scared to drop things, like to can these projects if you decide to, because when I started doing that, I just was so liberating. Like it's kind of hard to explain. I just wanted to float that out there that if at some point it's terrible for you, you can just quit and it's fine.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. It's why it's taken this long, because I've just not been focusing on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I think just knowing that at the end of the day, because obviously I haven't committed to anything, I haven't don't have invested or anything. At the end of the day, I think there was a period like 2 weeks ago where I posted like I wanted a developer, and then all of a sudden I'd had meetings every day with people all over the world and business advisors, and I was sorting it out on the train home and stuff.
Yeah.
And I just realized, hold on, I'm kind of the boss here. Like if I don't want to do anything, I can do it.
Yes.
I'll do anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, it shouldn't be that controls you, but you that controls it.
Yes, exactly. That's the mentality. It's easy to feel like it controls you, but it's not. It doesn't at the end of the day. Nantheesh, Nantheesh, it's been such a pleasure chatting to you. I think we should try and catch up again in maybe like, I don't know what your schedule's like, but maybe like 6 or 8 weeks. I'd love to touch base, just sort of, you know, to see if you've what progress you've made, if any. If none, that's totally fine. I feel like there's actually a lot more we could chat about. I just, unfortunately, I'm a little bit short of time. I'm gonna have to leave it here.
Yeah, no, that's really great. No,
in the meantime, please feel free to email me if you have like, you know, technical questions or any other questions. I found that I have really come to enjoy having like some kind of like mentoring role, particularly over clinical people who are working on these kind of projects or trying to get into them. So if you can't integrate this into that, or you want to talk about an approach to your GitHub, or you want to talk about an approach to anything, please just DM me on Twitter, email me. I'd love to provide any help that I'm able to. Can't guarantee that I'll be able to reply very quickly, but I do reply to every message that I get eventually. So please keep an open communication line and reach out if I can offer anything to help you.
Yeah, I know. I totally appreciate it. And if you ever want another reminder of what medical school life is like, and I'll give you my best. I'll give you my best experience of what do you call it? NHS in the UK and this is an medical student. But no, obviously, yeah, feel free to reach out to me as well.
Thank you very much, Nantheesh.
Thank you.
I'll chat to you soon.
We'll keep in touch over Twitter then.
Let's do it. Thanks, Nantheesh. I'll chat to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye now.